ladies and gentlemen, we have an NHL trade. I was just sitting in my chair, moping, thinking about life while listening to the Joker soundtrack that just won an Oscar, and all of a sudden the report comes in here on my phone. We have ourselves a trade. The Pittsburgh Penguins have acquired forward Jason Zucker from the Minnesota Wild in exchange for Alex Galchenyuk, Calen Addison, and a 2020 first-round draft pick. Oh boy, okay, so this is what we got. Jason Zucker is a guy whose name has been linked to trade talks for like the past 2 years pretty much. We talked about this a year ago, how the Minnesota Wild apparently asked for Brock Besser in a Zucker trade, but that didn't go through. The Canucks apparently denied that. So now he's going over to Pittsburgh in exchange for what is a quote-unquote middle six forward in Alex Galchenyuk, a 2020 first-round pick, which is very valuable depending on who you ask, and Calen Addison, who is one of the better WHL D-men prospects and a guy who I honestly think has a pretty good NHL future ahead of him. That's a pretty hefty price, isn't it? Huh. I'm not gonna lie, I'm surprised that Zucker was able to get that much. In my opinion, if you were to ask me, from these assets, I thought that Zucker would have probably been worth just Galchenyuk and a first. I'm surprised that they threw in Addison in there. The guy's over a point per game in the WHL this year as a D-man. He has been a point per game D-man the past 2 seasons as well, and the guy just looks like he has such a good top 4 offensive D-man power play ceiling that I'm surprised that he was thrown in here. But nevertheless, what the Penguins are getting here is a very reliable, very solid two-way forward in Jason Zucker, who can put up a heck of a lot of points as well. As a 28-year-old, he's not necessarily old, and his contract goes on until 2022-2023. This season he's at 29 points in 45 games played, but he has had a 30-goal season before, he has had 60 points before. Last season he had 42 points. Zucker is a guy who can really help out the Penguins on their playoff run if they're going to go that deep, and if they plan to go that deep, because he can play either wing and his two-way presence is very, very solid. I wouldn't be surprised if Zucker came in there and stepped right away on the Penguins' top PK unit, because that's just something that he does very well. Again, though, the return, I'm kind of surprised about that. Galchenyuk is a guy who has had his problems. That's something that a lot of people are going to bring up. He hasn't necessarily been as good as people thought he would be, but the fact of the matter is he is still a serviceable NHL forward. The first you could label however you want, because that's a first-round pick, and the Penguins, honestly, if you're getting a first from the Penguins, it's probably going to be like 26 plus. And Calen Addison, man, that's the big piece of meat on the bone here. I'm really surprised that the Wild were able to get Addison in this trade, as well as a Galchenyuk, as well as a first. That's a good return for a guy who I didn't think was going to be able to get a return like that. If Minnesota is focusing on the future, then they're doing a good job acquiring these assets that will help them out in the future, because all 3 of these assets can definitely do some damage for the Wild later on. So if I had to pick a winner, straight up, the assets for the assets, right now, Zucker is more valuable to an NHL team today than Galchenyuk, Addison, and a first will be, but long term, I think this is definitely a Minnesota Wild win, just because of the potential that Addison can bring to a Wild team, as well as the first, whatever you get there. This draft is going to be so good, so any late first-round pick, you're pretty much getting a steal, and Galchenyuk speaks for himself. Hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.